This is Women Road Warriors with Shelley Johnson and Kathy Tuccaro. If you drive long haul, short haul, or heavy haul, they're here to empower and inspire women in the trades on tncradio.live. So gear down, sit back, and enjoy.
You're listening to Women Road Warriors with host Shelley Johnson and Kathy Tuccaro, where we work to inspire and empower women in trucking, in the trades, and everywhere. I'm Shelley, and
I'm Kathy.
We like to feature women who've made inroads into industries where women have often been excluded, and today we have a wonderful guest on the show. Heinricher Racing was founded in 2013 by Jackie Heinricher, better known in international racing circles as Racer Jackie. She's an accomplished driver who owns multiple podiums. She's a visionary both on and off the racetrack. She launched Boo-Shoot Technology, a successful biotechnology firm, from her garage in 1998. In 2019, she formed a partnership with Caterpillar to bring the first full-season, all-female team of drivers to the IMSA WeatherTech SportsCar Championship. In 2017, Jackie became the first female driver in the Lamborghini Super Trofeo of North America Series. She's also raced in the Jim Russell F3 Series, BMW Pro 5 Series NW, World FIA Rally Series, Ferrari IMSA FIA, and Formula 3. For Jackie, establishing an all-female team was serious business. She worked hard to bring the top driving women in the world together. She also invested significant time and effort to bring major sponsors on board like Caterpillar and later ExxonMobil. We have Jackie Heinricher on the show with us today, and we couldn't be more excited. Welcome, Jackie. You've been a tremendous champion for women and a woman road warrior in your own right. We want to learn more.
Well, Kathy and Shelley, thank you for having me. It's great to be here.
Oh, it's wonderful having you on the show. I was wondering, how did all this get started? Did you always dream of racing?
No, I actually came to racing late in life. I was running my biotech company and got into racing, I should say, and really got inspired. It was a different kind of challenge. And as a CEO, it afforded me a moment to concentrate on the track as opposed to think of the glass bead on the floor at my company. So it really inspired me, and I became passionate about racing and started racing all kinds of cars.
Well, you're a wonderful example. There's a quote on your website I love. The car can't tell the difference between a female and a male driver, but the next generation of women can. Wow, that's powerful.
Yeah, I mean, thank you. It's true. And, motorsports is one of the most male-dominated sports globally. Both drivers and team owners in particular, teams in general. We all know how to drive a car. It just, as I was racing, it occurred to me that maybe I could switch hats and become an owner and find the right partnerships to be able to help professional female drivers come together to challenge some of the big championships. And that's not an easy thing to do. And it really comes down to obviously funding, but it also comes down to somebody really trying to guide the ship, if you will. So it was really exciting for me to try to do that and to bring equality, diversity, and inclusion to the grittiest lane on earth, which is pit lane.
Why has it been so difficult in race car circuits for women to make inroads? Are they just kind of treated as second class, or what happens there?
Well, I guess if you look at racing in general, it has always more or less, although there are famous female drivers, like Shirley Muldowney, Janet Guthrie, Michelle Mouton. I mean, there are women who have made, Danica Patrick.
Yeah.
There's a lot of stories of very significant success in racing, but percentage wise, the diversity side of racing, whether you're a woman or you're Black or Hispanic, it's just, it's something that hasn't really been supported in a way that is successful.
Hmm.
There are programs, but there's so few people that make it to the top leagues. Part of that is sponsorship, and sponsorship is hard regardless of your gender, right? Because you're asking for free money.
Yep.
You're working for it, but and that's one of the hardest things to do, is to get that kind of support. Often companies don't see women as bankable. So from an investment perspective, well, the big teams get a lot of big investments. Very hard for women to acquire the same kind of investments. And that's partly because the history of all the relationships are there and in place. And mainly those are the folks that have been in the racing circuits, and generally they're predominantly male. So busting into that is no small feat. Now there are, women coming up and doing great things in racing. But again, if you look at the sport in general, they're clearly a minority.
Yeah.
If you look at women owners, they don't exist. That does not exist. And that's the barrier I'm trying to shatter at this point.
I think that's wonderful. And you're giving women an opportunity, because let's face it, to gain prominence in the industry, you have to have good backers. And it does seem that it doesn't favor women. Is there some sort of a misconception that women don't have the endurance or the skill, or why is that they're not bankable, like you said? That's the perception.
Well, in any sport, I think, there's so many, there's so many barriers all the way around. I mean, here are some of the excuses. You don't have enough of a social media following. You're not winning. It's interesting, because if you could just look at NASCAR, for instance, and look at the 10 guys at the bottom of the pack. They still have large sponsorships, so they're not at the top. And so for women, it seems to me the field goal keeps being moved. So you get into the top 5, but you didn't win. So now you're not investable.
Yeah.
Or there's always that sliding, strange shell game going on. And I guess look, nobody has probably, I could write a book about my journey through corporate America. Probably nobody has worked as hard as I have to try to engage companies to get this effort rolling, and continue rolling. Because I feel like if women are going to succeed in the sport, it's got to come from somebody who's in a big leadership role, i.e. a team owner, who can help these girls come up through the leagues and get the kind of funding they need to do, to get where they need to go and to win, take on the level of pros that are racing now. And I feel like without that, it's just going to continue to kind of be just what it is, which is status quo.
Sure. And it's really tough when they keep moving the goalposts. How do you win the game? That's just beyond frustrating.
Yeah, I think, you hear often that companies support women. They're about diversity and inclusion. And STEM gets thrown around a lot. I started a biotech company in my garage. I'm probably, at the time, I was a founder and CEO of a biotech company when women weren't doing that. And I was very successful. So, but the reality is, when you sit down and you have this kind of an enormous program, the dollars just seem to not materialize. And so for me, without being, a Debbie Downer here, that's been one of the hardest experiences of my professional life, is the number of doors that have been slammed and continue to be slammed. Even though, as a team owner, I'm the first woman team owner in IMSA's, 50 odd year history to actually get a driver on the podium, the very first woman owner to ever do that in history. I've demonstrated my ability to win and my ability to run a major league team. But again, this kind of boils down to the epic issues going on in terms of the sport and just the kinds of challenges that women face in the sport.
Well, bravo to you. You're courageous and you're setting the stage and opening the door for women. That's just awesome.
Well, hopefully. Thank you. I've had success and I've had great failure. Right now, it feels like great failure. In 2021, I took a run at continuing to have partnerships and completely failed. I've basically spent much of this year working on the same thing to get back to the grid as an owner, to bring women back together in these cars. And it's a challenge. It's just a real challenge. But yeah, I mean, I have not given up and I'm fighting.
Good for
and
you.
I think that's the most important thing is, not letting those kinds of no's or those kinds of rejections make you stop doing what is so important to not only the sport, but to women in the sport and to all diversity and inclusion in the sport.
Jackie, when you and I met at the Women in Leadership Conference for Caterpillar back in 2018, I think, I was listening to you speak when you were on stage, and I was awed, completely awed by who you are as a person, your tenacity, your determination, and the fact that you race cars is super cool. I remember my only opportunity at ever racing was 20 years ago with my daughter. She was just a little tyke, and I had to do the powder puff thing where you can bump and pass on a and I had so much fun that we were actually allowed to slam another car. And I came in, I was coming in first, and then there's a pile of cars that came up ahead. Anyway, I came in third, but the rush that I had, and I realized, oh my God, I'm actually good at this. So fast forward to today, now that I'm operating the biggest truck in the world, although it's not a race car, I can kind of a little bit feel the rush that you might have behind the wheel. Because I mean, you got to admit, operating the largest truck in the world, it's a rush. It is, but it's not something that a lot of women have the opportunity to do. And the fact that I can is incredible. But I remember when we met afterwards at the dinner and we were talking, and you came and you allowed me to wear your $8,000 helmet. I think it was that much. And I couldn't believe how heavy that sucker was. Like, oh my God, I still have the pictures. It's like unbelievable. Can you tell me a little bit about that helmet, why it was so special?
Yeah, well, it was so great meeting you there. I remember us being backstage, just as a side, both in our different uniforms, if you will, getting ready to go out for the Women in Leadership Conference. What a hoot. That was fantastic, Kathy. Yeah, so helmets, when you race at the level that the sanctioned racing, which is FIA sanctioned, Formula One, IndyCar, NASCAR, these are really fast cars. And so the helmets are specifically designed to keep you from, hurting yourself, i.e. they're special composites. There's a lift mechanism in the helmet that, a paramedic could apply air, it would lift the helmet off. So everything about the helmet, there's radio connection, there's hydration. Everything about that helmet is really important to your safety in a car when you're racing, a couple 100 miles an hour. And then what's kind of little known, probably outside racing circles, is the way you have your helmet painted. That's how drivers recognize you when you're racing. So that's actually your signature. And those paint jobs are pricey and special people do them. And so the helmet itself is really amazing. And then, a lot of people have like a gold tinted visor so they can look directly at the sun, which really speaks to the concentration and just the amazing center point of focus where you're able to just stare straight at the sun as you're racing. So it's amazing. Yeah. And it's metaphorical. The whole thing about racing is metaphorical for life in a way. So it's a challenge. It's thrilling. You nailed it, Kathy. It's so amazing. It's, I think Steve McQueen said racing is life. Anything before or after is just waiting.
Jackie, Kathy has a book called Dream Big. I would say that that's kind of been your mantra. You don't do anything small. I'm super impressed with this.
Well, I love Kathy's book. Kathy was kind enough to give me one when we were together at Caterpillar. I said to somebody the other day, I don't think many people would want to live my life, because especially with what I'm trying to achieve right now in racing, there's no middle ground. So there's either success or, maybe I perceive it as failure, but it's a temporary setbacks, but it's high highs and low lows. But I think that's what you get when you're fighting and dreaming and really trying to accomplish something that probably most people would have given up on a long time ago.
So you're either facing a caution flag briefly, or you're running wide open pretty much all the time.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
It makes it exciting, if not completely daredevil.
Stay tuned for more of Women Road Warriors coming up.
TNCRadio.live wants to make sure you purchase a copy of John Schneider's new album, Truck On, that features great songs like Born at a Truck Stop, Truck On, Stand On It, and Cowboys Don't Get Old. John Schneider rocks the life of a trucker in this album. The lyrics are clever, the music is great, and his vocals are his usual best. What's even better is a portion of the proceeds from the Truck On album will benefit St. Christopher Truckers Relief Fund, which helps truckers and their families in their time of need. Get the Truck On album at johnschneiderstudios.com or on Amazon. We'll feature a link on tncradio.live. Truckers and St. Christopher Truckers Relief Fund will thank you.
Welcome back to Women Road Warriors with Shelley Johnson and Kathy Tuccaro.
My curiosity is, you said that you hadn't necessarily aspired to be a race car driver. Where did you get all the experience to be able to get to the level you did? I mean, that's super impressive.
Yeah, it's funny. I got bitten by the racing bug, went to racing school, Skip Barber Racing School in California, got my racing license, and actually my first car race in my lifetime was Daytona, if you can imagine that.
Wow.
That's awesome. Wow.
Wow.
Yeah.
I think I was just dumb enough not to know better, right? So
hey, do it big. What the heck,
That's right.
it was amazing. I wasn't terrible, but I was probably so overwhelmed being on the high banks, and at the time that was in a Ferrari, and on the oval, we were flat out at 196 miles an hour. So,
Oh my Lord.
it was something else. But I have had the opportunity to hop in a lot of different cars, and it's just really it became passion. It became something that I really heavily pursued. It wasn't until 2018 that I switched hats and became an owner, mainly because often, women in racing, we don't get to compete against each other because we're just all fighting in wherever we're fighting to get to wherever we're trying to go.
Sure.
And I just saw an opportunity to bring the 4 top women from 4 different countries together to challenge the IMSA championship in its history. And all my racing led me to that place, and just observing racing.
And I was looking at the different women. You don't hear about them a lot in the media. Do you think that maybe the media has something to do with this too, as to where women are not gaining the prominence that they should get?
Yeah, it's just it's actually really dumbfounding to me. I mean, it's interesting because after we raced the 2019 season, unfortunately, Caterpillar abruptly departed our effort, and through just nothing that had anything to do with us, but clearly you had like a whole team that suddenly had no help, and so the press did quite a bit on that story. But and what's really fascinating about that is it was the front page of sports of the New York Times, and they did highlight that the team was without help or partnership help, and we just didn't receive a single phone call. So your guess is as good as mine.
Wow.
It can be so frustrating. You've had what I would call maybe dogged determination. I think I'm taking that from my parents, but just a determination that I think that has really helped. And I think women, when they want to aspire higher, if you will, have to have that. I think we have to work harder than men just to say, hey, I'm out here, look at me, right?
Oh, I think there's no doubt. You have to work harder. You have to fight harder. I'm not just a driver. I'm a founder of a big company. I'm a CEO. I think I come with a huge amount of credibility as a team owner. I'm probably one of the few at my level qualified to go take on the big teams. But of course, it's something that you've got to get up every morning and just keep punching the bag, right?
Yeah.
You got to keep going after it.
I was just going to say, I see the same even in operating heavy equipment up here. In the amount of mines that we have, the percentage of women is very, very small. Like we're in the 1%. And even that 1%, it's like we're constantly having to fight to demonstrate, that we belong here in a sense. So I get it. I really do. It's like a constant battle almost. Every day you got to show up the top of your game, because the one day that you're not, well, then that's what the focus is on. You're only as good as your last 5 minutes is the term up here.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah. Yeah.
Would you say, Jackie, you've kind of encountered that too?
I think at the end of the day, you're like Kathy, you're breaking into a sector that, as she just pointed out, there are very few women involved. So you have to get comfortable with this notion that you're, say, in my case, the only female owner walking through pit lane. It's intimidating. It's, you have to watch yourself. You have to perform, you're self-conscious about it because you want to, like Kathy said, you're only as good as your last 5 minutes. So you're really fighting to do your very best and to, get those milestones. And for me, to be clear, I want to win. I want to win for women. I want to win in the sport. And I want to get back to, ownership and get back and help women get in those seats. That's really, the big goal for me right now. And it's a huge goal. It's a lofty goal. And again, I'm coming off 2021 where it didn't happen. And so that was a big, that caused me to pause for quite a while. So.
Sure. Well, 2020 certainly caused a lot of disruption. I think that it's kind of sidetracked so many companies and people and everything else. So if you have a pause, you can just gain momentum again in 2022 and really seriously kick some ass, right?
Yeah, well, that's the goal.
Yeah.
Look, this comes down to financial partnerships. And
Sure. Yeah.
and that's true in all sports for probably anyone trying to achieve anything in sports. I'm presenting a little bit different picture because I'm trying to find partners to support my team as a team owner.
Mm-hmm.
arguing that I don't think that we can find the women that can be the Indy 500 winner if we don't have someone in a leadership role who's an owner, who's actually recruiting drivers, who sees the perspective of female drivers trying to come up in the sport.
Sure.
So I'm presenting a little bit different picture than is normal than say a driver looking for a sponsor.
Mm-hmm. Makes sense. For those listeners who aren't familiar with the type of racing you do, what is Formula 3?
It's an open wheel car. So it's, if you're familiar with Formula 1, you don't have a hood over your head. So you're in a car that looks like a mini version of a Formula 1 car. Mm-hmm. The other cars I've raced are sports cars, but they're called GT3s. They're set up specifically to race, or GT Daytona. And I also raced Global Rallycross, the Red Bull Series. And those cars are meant to jump and slide and crash and race on pavement and dirt.
Wow.
So I've raced, I've been in a lot of different cars, and I've done a lot of different training, and including stunt driving. So, my passion is definitely driving, but right now my passion is to get back to my ownership helm and bring women who are extremely talented back together to this grid and race. I would say that my focus is on IMSA, which is the top level sports car racing globally. So think of Le Mans and Daytona, the biggest circuits. I have my eye on IndyCar as an owner, but the main thing is just getting there.
Sure.
I was in Vegas last week and with my daughter, and we were driving by there's a race car there, a racetrack there. And I was thinking of you, and I was thinking, man, it would be so cool if Jackie and I could take a 400-ton truck and race.
There you go.
That'd be amazing.
They only go 50 miles an hour, 70 kilometers an hour. But man, when they're fully loaded and we're going down a straight stretch, let me tell you the level of adrenaline that's going through your mind. I mean, you got a 1,000,000-pound chunk of metal just flying through. And I'm thinking, man, if Jackie and I could race, that would be so much fun.
They have big racing. That would be great. Yeah.
I hope you have good brakes on that thing, Kathy.
Oh yeah, we do. We do brake testing every year, which is wicked. But yeah, it's quite the rush to have a fully loaded truck, 400 tons, go as fast as it can, then slam on the brakes, and they measure how long it takes to stop, like the distance wise. It's a rush. It's a real rush. I love it. So I can't even imagine your level of racing, right?
I have to tell you, I happen to have the unique experience of getting to stand next to one of those trucks during my visit to Caterpillar. And for those of you who don't know, I think I came about, I was standing next to the tire, and the tire towered over me. So,
they're 14 feet high, right?
Yeah, exactly. So I just wanted to point out that the truck you drive is badass. That's all I can say.
My baby. I still have that haul truck keychain waiting in my room just to give it to you yet. I'm holding on to that sucker. We will meet again.
Absolutely. Oh my gosh. Yeah, it's exciting. So where I'm at the moment is I'm actually pounding on corporate doors right now to see if I can get the proper partnerships back together to take on the 2022 season.
That would be wonderful. What you're doing for women is awesome.
It is. It really is, Jackie. You're just amazing. What I've found in my own personal struggles, because of just trying to get where I want to be in life, and it's not all about operating heavy equipment. This is just a day job. But I have found that every next level of your life and where you're going and your dreams and your goals demands a different version of yourself and who you aspire to be and what part of you is going to shine. And sometimes figuring that part out just requires a different perspective. what I tend to do is just kind of look at my life and pull like a chessboard, and I pull myself out of my own life sort of thing, so to speak. And I look at it from a different point of view, as if I'd be a bird. And what is my next piece? What is my next move? What is my next strategy? And sometimes just taking that step back or that different viewpoint allows your consciousness to bring in a different aspect that you wouldn't have normally thought of. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so, and you got to vibrate higher than the negativity that's on your frequency right now, right? You just got to expand it, pull up ahead, even though it's hard. You just got to flip it around somehow, right? And pull something deep from inside your soul that's going to give you a different leverage of attack. we'll call it attack because, it kind of is a word.
I love that analogy, Kathy. That's great.
No, you're absolutely. I mean, that's kind of the introspection that I had coming towards the end of 2021, which is, try not to focus on, that experience, but rethink the experience and really think about, and not consider it failure, because, no matter the outcome, I continue to work extremely hard to do something really important. And so all of that matters. All of it.
Jackie, how do you think we can overcome the perception that women will never be as good at racing cars as men? I think that there's some perception, and I've heard guys say this. Guys they'll take more risks. Women are afraid to do that. They don't have the endurance, and blah blah blah. How do we get around that?
Well, just a couple of things here. So the women that are racing the IMSA Championship, for instance, it's a combination of endurance races and shorter races, 2 hours. Our first race of the season is a 24-hour race, and that's split up by 4 drivers. So in the driver community, the concept that women is not true. They do respect women, and women have clearly demonstrated that they have the endurance. I think the overall notion that women don't belong there is the wrong notion. Yeah. I can't say it any other way. We do belong there. And, there's some really important examples in history of women who've succeeded very well in racing. And it's time that racing embraced it. I mean, there've been some really exciting things. If you look at Bubba Wallace, he just won Talladega. He's the first Black person to win a race in NASCAR's history. Mm-hmm. He had all the Confederate flags banned from the infield. There have been some kind of amazing strides. Michael Jordan invested in the team that Bubba drives for. Pitbull just invested in a team that has a Hispanic driver. We need somebody, similarly to invest in a women's team. Because the women are out there to win. And I will say this, because part of your question is this perception of we can't do it. You do need to win races, right? Mm-hmm. You do need to show that you have the professional athleticism to win and the talent to win. I think, though, that until we get somebody in an ownership position, or if we get somebody who can be a driver of a team, don't mean like physical driving, but can guide a team that can get women to that spot where they can win in a good enough car, and that, with the right funding, then I think that whole thing will disappear.
Yeah, because I find it rather amazing. I think they've done some studies that women actually can be sometimes better pilots for jets and that sort of thing because of vision and the motor skills. And in terms of driving, professional drivers, as a rule, women have fewer accidents. That is one of the stats in the trucking industry. So to say women can't do it, it's not backed by science for sure.
No, and honestly, women women racers are, they're fast. They're really fast. They concentrate. Having run a team of the 4 top pro women from 4 different countries, I witnessed nothing but the highest level of athleticism and professionalism. When I brought the team together, and we were lucky enough to and grateful to have Caterpillar come on board. I heard a lot of, snide comments about cat fights and all kinds of, and the reality is that, we're a team, and we're out there for one reason and one reason only, and that's to win. So we're no different than any other team out there. We just don't get to see it enough. And that's why, hence my work. I mean, I'm determined. Again, I think this comes from true leadership, trying to get women more prominent in the sport. And, I'm kind of fighting, I'm not fighting. I would say that, I'm working in it kind of in an amazing way to bring it about, i.e. I'm actually the one looking at the funding, because I think that's really the stumbling point the end of the day. Yeah. So, I mean that in the sense that I think for women to start to really win in the sport, once you break that barrier of partnerships and investors, and you can because you can race a terrible car with very little money and you're never going to win.
Right.
But if you can get the right scenario together and you have a really competitive car, then there is nothing other than the driver that would stop, any success. So it's a fantastic model.
Well, it's like anything else. If you say you're a jockey with a horse, if you've got a really slow horse and you're a great jockey, you're not going to win. And finances, unfortunately, that's part of the game. You got to get a really good sponsor so that you can get that better car and that you can get out in front. And bravo to you for really pursuing this, because I want to see women out in front.
Yeah, no doubt. No, it's such a fantastic sport. And it's exciting. There's so much passion around it. I just want to see it become, more diverse and more exciting and more, you can't really gauge competition if 50% of your competitors aren't in the field, i.e. women. So if you're winning, you don't know what you're really, you're only competing against one demographic. So you're not really giving the competition a fair example of what it could be.
Stay tuned for more of Women Road Warriors coming up.
Industry movement Trucking Moves America Forward is telling the story of the industry. Our safety champions, the women of trucking, independent contractors, the next generation of truckers, and more. Help us promote the best of our industry. Share your story and what you love about trucking. Share images of a moment you're proud of. And join us on social media. Learn more at truckingmovesamerica.com.
Welcome back to Women Road Warriors with Shelley Johnson and Kathy Tuccaro.
So what advice do you have, Jackie, to women who may not necessarily be race car drivers, but they want to do something and they want to get out in front, but maybe there's some things holding them back? How do they really follow their passion?
I get asked this a lot, actually. You just you can't be deterred by, any negativity, whether you perceive it as failure or it didn't happen the first time. There's always a way. And I think if you're really passionate and you're determined and it's a big part of your life, that's it. You just have to pursue that dream, because everything else is just giving in my estimation.
Amen to that.
The way I see it is like when the obstacles come, because even myself getting this job, going from, homelessness to, trying to change careers and figure it out, is that when the obstacles come, and they do, is that you can't control what's happening, like when the obstacles hit you. But what you can do is you can challenge yourself to control the way you're going to respond to that obstacle. That's where the power is. Like, I'll give you an example. When I was about to get this job, I had the golden egg was right there, and I had this huge obstacle come up in terms of just some things that I needed to do for paperwork wise. And it was such a major obstacle that I almost gave up. But yet I spent 2 days crying about it. Then I got mad. I said, Kathy, there's no amount of crying that's going to fix this. You got to fix this. So I got back up and I attacked the problem from a different perspective, like I was saying earlier. And I confronted it face on, and I'll be dipped if I didn't manage to overcome that obstacle. And here I am today, 8.5 years later. So it really is a matter of perspective and finding your inner power and how you're going to choose to overcome that problem. It doesn't matter what's on your plate, right? And I really believe that. I really, really do. You can either let that squish you or you can squish it, basically. Sorry, or you can say another way I tend to look at it is that it's okay if you fall and lose your spark. It's okay. But make sure that when you get back up, that you rise as a whole fire, not just a spark. You just be that whole entire flame. Bring it on.
Amen to that. Yeah, I think women, quite often, they get maybe more negative messaging, especially when we're growing up and that sort of thing. You can't do that. I have never liked the word can't any more than I like the word no. Switch the word no, and it means on. N-O, flip it around. Yeah, I'm on. Game is on,
Challenge accepted.
Yes. And women are hard on themselves. And the messaging still out there is, oh, you got to be pretty and show your cleavage and do this and that. And if you don't look a certain way, forget it. It's still out there, and it drives me crazy. It's like, come on. We are who we are, and let's bring out our inner strength. And this is who we truly are. And no, you aren't going to say no to me. My dreams and my passion are important.
Such great point, Kathy, such a great point. Like, I even think about math, right? And just somebody avoiding their checkbook because they really don't understand it. That's an interesting thing for women because I think we self-defeat in a way. Like you talked about, those obstacles seem so much bigger, probably to us than to most. And really, if we just tackle them, or we get a different perspective and then tackle it, it's sort of like, oh wow, I just did that.
Yep.
So it's really cool when you can get over those obstacles with a whole new perspective. But I would say, I think you're right. The no's or the self-defeats, that's something that I think women are overcoming. And I think, but I still think it is a human condition, right?
When I look at obstacles now, I imagine a 400-ton truck dumping its load in the middle of the road. That's a big pile of dirt, right? That's a big obstacle for a little pickup to come across. So then when I think about other pieces of equipment, well, how does a grader tackle that big pile? You can only do bits and pieces with the small blade that you have for the big pile. So you tackle it a certain way. How does a dozer attack it? You got a big D11 dozer, which is bigger it's massive. Well, that sucker will just plow right through it, no problem. But then if you have a smaller truck, like a pickup, well, you're not that you're screwed, but you got to kind of go find a different path around it. If you're a smaller truck, like the little 785s, which is basically, I drive the house, the 785s is the garage, it's a smaller truck. Well, you find a different way. So the way I look at it is whatever piece of equipment that I'm operating, I tackle the problem differently. So if you look at that in terms of life, who you're going to be, how you approach the problem is how you set your mindset in terms of how you're going to tackle your plan, right? Do you kind of get what I'm saying?
Yep.
And it's fascinating because in driving, if you're going to drive where you're looking. So if you're looking at a wall, you're going to drive right into it. If you're thinking about a million things, you're not going to, make those, tenth of second decisions to be competitive. Really, at the end of the day, the brain's kind of a powerful, noisy place that we have to rein in. I think that's one of the things about racing that's so impressive is your mind cannot wander. It has to focus. It's sort of a neat life lesson, but you're right, Kathy, you have to And, even if you drive to the wall and you hit it, the next thing you do is you've got to get back to the race because it's not over until it's over.
Have you ever
Right.
had close calls, and how has that affected your perception on how you're going to are you going to keep on racing? Do you know what I mean? Like, have you ever had a really close call? I've had a few in the truck, and I call it the holy shit moments. Like, oh my God, like, and you could either just quit the job and say, I'll never do that again, or you're going to get back on that horse and just keep driving.
Oh yeah. Yes, I've had a couple of significant racing incidences. One at Daytona a couple years after my first race there, and one at Watkins Glen, and they were both massive. But and interestingly, my initial instinct was embarrassment. And then I came to love this saying, even a monkey falls out of a tree. So everybody makes mistakes, right?
Yeah.
So there's no embarrassment to be had. And you gotta tell yourself that. And then the second thing was just, the smarts of being hurt in the car. And then the third thing was just after an hour timeout, all I wanted to do was be back in the car. But you go through a range of emotion, and I think that's true in life. And again, I mean, I just, because I'd be the only woman at a racetrack or in a race, the embarrassment factor was something that played heavily in my mental attitude. And it was a guy, driver, instructor, well-known guy who kind of pulled me aside, and he goes, hey, I'm telling you, even a monkey falls out of a tree. I've wrecked, if I'm out of a car for 2 weeks, I wreck. That gave me strangely huge confidence in my life in terms of those kinds of situations. I mean, women who are the only ones in a boardroom, or, we find ourselves solo in these situations, and embarrassment is often what cuts us down.
Right.
I'm really lucky that here at work, it's the same thing, because man, like my one close call, you got to imagine the house that I'm driving is sliding down a ramp. There's this 360 and I'm going sideways. I have no control over this thing, where it's going to go. I'm heading straight towards another truck, and I ended up managing to move my truck into a berm. Nobody got hurt. It was all good. But one of the best things, yes, there's embarrassment. Yes, there's what could I have done different. But the third one was that my coworker says, you know what? We've been doing this for however long, and we've all done something. There's situations that arise, and you don't have that control, but you still get back up and you still do it, right? So that's really been my help.
So it's a matter of maybe giving yourself permission to be human and just keep on trying.
Yeah.
Yep. We have to wrap it up here. Oh my gosh, what great insight, Jackie. This has been an awesome opportunity. I really appreciate it. Where do people find more information about Heinricher Racing and about you, and where they can reach out to even help?
Well, HeinricherRacing.com. It's the same handle on all the social channels. You can private message me, anything. Yeah, and I welcome any outreach or questions anybody may have. And it's been great to be here. I think it's been an amazing opportunity. I feel so honored to be with both of you. And
thank you.
You're my absolute hero. You're always
wonderful. Jackie, you're a wonderful inspiration, and you're going to get ladies out in front. And this is marvelous.
Well, thank you. Thank you for what you both do. You're both trailblazers, and it's so important to all of us. So Kathy, you're my hero too. So
there you go. I totally agree. Thank you so much, Jackie, for being on the show. We really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me. Thank you both.
You've been listening to Women Road Warriors with Shelley Johnson and Kathy Tuccaro. If you want to be a guest on the show or have a topic or feedback, email us at info@tncradio.live.
Kathy DeCaro is nothing short of amazing. She not only drives the world's biggest truck as a heavy equipment operator in northern Alberta, Canada. She's an international motivational speaker and the author of Dream Big, an autobiography about overcoming a lifetime of trauma and abuse that led to dreams of success. Kathy inspires people the world over to change their lives and improve their self-worth. Her book will change your life. She's passionate about personal growth and believes anyone can change their circumstances and overcome their obstacles if they believe in themselves. Her life will amaze you and seriously inspire you. Be sure to order a copy of her book, Dream Big, on Amazon.com. Thank you for listening to another great interview on TNCRadio.live and the Truckers Network radio show. All of the material you hear on TNCRadio.live, on our website, our broadcasts, or our podcasts are copyrighted. There can be no distribution without the express consent of TNCRadio.live and its partners. For inquiries, write us at info@tncradio.live.